Excuse me. Waiting on Lorrie. We're already live on Facebook. What's happening, everybody? I don't see Lori out there. Unless you got a different name in the Zoom room. Let's see. Let's see here. Let's see here. Oh, that's you. Okay. Keely Rayanne. All right, let me get you up here. Todd Medina, Soulogy.One Studios, Soul Speaks 5D, Soulogy Network. We got Lori Mcbride on. She just had Jake Borchert over there for 2 weeks, who we just saw about 2 weeks ago here in person. So we can talk about that a little bit, talk about people coming together, uh, you know, people that we've met online in these communities. Let's get her up here. Let's see here. Let's just start video.
Okay, can you see me?
Yeah, what's happening?
Hey, sorry, I tried to change my display name because Keely is my soul name. So I used to use that for my business.
Yeah.
So I tried to change it so it wouldn't confuse you, but it didn't work out.
Well, I can change it, I think. Just so, yeah, rename. Let's rename her. LORIEMCBRID.
I love that intro, by the way. Every time I see that intro, I don't know if it's just the imagery or their music combined, it just lights me up.
Well, it's interesting because it's actually I actually used it in a Soul Speak music video. I did about 75 of them, and it was one of the. It was a. It's actually a guitar riff from Chet Faker, one of his songs, but it's
Okay.
the dude just does the guitar riff, and I liked it. And this lady I met from Germany in this group with like 50 people saw a couple of Soul Speak music videos, and she's like, "I want to do one." And I said, "Well, just get your phone and do it. Well, I didn't know
Yeah.
she freestyled it. It's incredible. It's in the Soul Speak music videos on YouTube. Uh,
Yeah.
I can't
That's really
remember.
good, that intro.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but so she did this. She spoke into this thing, and I had just found the music, and then I put it together. It's an incredible sound because it was a freestyle. She just got her phone out and freestyle. Anyway, so whenever Michael Van Patten, my brother, he's a graphic artist, and he created that image off of an image that Ryan Aguilar put together, which was basically a a a visual of the Soulogy tree that appeared to me in Morgan and spoke to us in the summer of 2018. And so Michael looked at it, and then he did his thing with it, and then put the movement to it, and then I just put the music to it. So yeah, I'm happy with it. I like it. It's
Yeah,
nice.
it's really
Thank you.
awesome. I love it.
So yeah, what's happening, everybody? I see Blaine Devereaux out there. Him and Julie coming this way, I think. And then I just met Jake Borchardt. We met Jake 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. God, this month has been like
Yeah,
10
it's
years,
been
man.
crazy. I
Yeah,
actually just met Jake about a month ago. We started doing Zooms,
yeah.
and something was in me. It was telling me to reach out. Normally, I would never invite a stranger to my home, so it's really interesting. So it was going way out of my comfort zone, right?
That's a very, that's a isn't that something? I mean, because over I don't know how many years, probably 4, I've met people that I met online, and I know everybody's changed and everybody's evolving, but you know, uh, some of the early meetings, they weren't always what they appeared to be. So,
Yeah.
but it's all good, and but it's interesting because for someone to like take someone into their home,
Yeah, because it's
and
just my daughter and me here. So
yeah,
it's just us here.
especially
So
yeah,
something in
that,
my guidance system, my guides were like,
yeah,
you have to do this. And it was weird because I was in that where he posted he needed help, and I was like, oh gosh. And I felt like I should reach out, and I just had this sick, like clenching feeling in my solar plexus. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And then, because I'm just so protective of my space. And I went through a lot of shit over the last few years. So I finally made it to my own home again. And I'm like, gosh, I'm so protective of my energy, and the energy is balanced here, just beautiful thing. And I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to reach out. And then I just did it. And then as soon as I did it, all that anxiety went away. I'm like, okay, I know this is meant to be, right?
yeah, right on. I'm sorry, I was listening, but I've been
Okay.
having trouble. People have been complaining about my voice being too soft, and so I just took this thing out. I think it's broken.
Oh,
If it's not, if that's not any better, Blaine, let me know. Okay, and if you don't say anything, I guess it's okay. Yeah, and so for somebody to, a lot of people are obviously we've all been following. Let me see if it's still low. Is it still low?
I hear you just fine.
Yeah, but that's what's been happening. It when it goes into for some reason through Zoom, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
Let me see here. Oh, much better. Okay, so it's okay now. So, yeah, so like we've all been following our guidance and doing this crazy shit. I
Yeah.
mean, like that's crazy. I mean, but for someone to follow that guidance and say, "Come into my home," I've got a child here, and they're the opposite sex, and
Yeah.
that's pretty ballsy.
Yeah, I've always been pretty ballsy. And, I just like, I'm not really afraid of too many people. So I thought, whatever, this person needs a place. My daughter, she's 15, but she's like a beast in her own right. Like, she's just like, I don't have to really worry about her with things like that. She's just very strong willed, strong minded. She's just strong. She's a strong kid. She's an old soul. She's been my biggest sidekick on this spiritual journey. And at first, she was a little uncomfortable with it about having a man in the house. And I was, because I've had a lot of toxic relationships, and she's been right there with me. So she's been with either or 3 when she was involved since I got divorced.
Yeah.
So she was right there with me. So she's like, "Ooh, I don't know, like, is mom getting herself into something?" And told her, I was like, "It's completely platonic. Remember last year, because we were homeless for a little while. She and we were bounced around. I lost my job a few years ago, and I was in a really toxic relationship. I got stuck there. That's a whole story in its own of how I got out of there. Just, I was meditating 4 hours a day to keep, my energy balanced in that environment. And then we moved in with a friend, and they helped us out. And I tried to explain to her, remember when we were down and out and we didn't have a place to live, and we got to help people. We got to pay that back. And then she was kind of okay with it. And then once he came here, he brought his dog. and she was good. I mean, she didn't really worry about it, so it ended up
And
working
I
out.
didn't get to meet his dog. I don't know where his dog was when I met him. So you guys were, so you got a 15-year-old, and it's interesting when we talk to people that have these younger people, and they're
Yeah.
actually, navigating the ascension with these younger people with them. I
Hmm.
mean, so you guys were homeless for a little bit. I mean, and
Yeah,
she,
so I feel like I woke up when Ashlyn was born because I remember clearly. I've been a psychic medium for as long as I can remember. I remember talking to spirit when I was like 3.
mm,
And it's funny because I used to move to all these houses and I kept saying, gosh, every fucking time I move into a house, it's haunted. Why am I moving into all these haunted houses? When in reality, I was haunted, right? The houses were haunted. I was haunted. They're
right,
trying to get messages through. So, um, so I just started like, and then I just started, that's when I really started getting pushed in my spiritual awakening, especially in 2016. It got really strong, the pull. And I was in a job interview or job review, an annual review, and I was pulling cards because I just felt like something was off. And I was really new to tarot. I was just new to this whole spirituality thing. I was just getting the really strong calling to go within and use mediumship. And I was getting like messages from mediumship messages, just, giving it to friends or whoever, like, is your grandpa's name this? Because I don't know. I always thought that spirit messed with me because I thought I was weak or they just like to fuck with me, right? So,
mm,
but I didn't realize they were trying to get communication through their past loved ones. So I lost my job, and Ashlyn was, let's see, she was 13, I think, at the time. And so I was in a toxic relationship at that time. I was drinking too much, and she saw that bad side. I had a lot of healing to do, and we just went off. I left that relationship. We moved into our own house in Michigan. It didn't last long. I ended up losing that house because Spirit was like, okay, you have some lessons to learn. Go on your
yeah,
journey.
right.
They're like, we tried to teach this bitch. We gave her, like, she took her job, because I was holding on to it. I didn't want to get rid of it. My
Take
job,
a
even
two
though I
by
held the desk
four.
card.
Take a 2x4 to her ass.
Yeah, because I was even saying that to Jake. Like, if you don't listen to the universe, I mean, spirit will come in and fucking clothesline your ass, right? If you're not taking those lessons.
That's true. We went to Sedona a few months back, and Sandra Walter, who I have the utmost respect for, she invited us to lunch, right? And we were just talking, and she's really down to earth for someone that's pulling in that kind of, intel for so long too. But anyway, we were talking about a mutual friend who's very high vibrational and who's been out there a long time, and utmost respect to them too. But she was just saying how, because we can, as mirrors of each other, we can see what's going on now that the telepathy is expanding and so on. But the comment that she made, really is for all of us. She said, if you don't listen to that voice and that guidance, your higher self is going to embarrass the hell out of you.
Yeah.
And it really struck me because I thought, you know what? That's true. I mean, at some point, it's just going to throw its arms up and say, you know what? Fuck it. You're going to get a 2x4 across the head and a couple in the ass.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. I was in this horrible relationship, and I'm not blaming any other person. It was me. It takes two to tango. So I was in this
Yeah.
bad relationship. I leave it, right? I'm on my own. I'm going on my spiritual path. These great things are happening for me. And then I get into another one.
Yeah.
And this one was 10 times worse. So I was like, and then Ashlyn was with me. We moved to another state and I was with someone, and it was just a terrible environment where spirit took, like, the universe took everything. My car, everything. I wasn't getting any sessions, any clients. I have clients all over the world. I wasn't getting any clients anymore. It was like completely knocked me on my ass where I was stuck in this place, in this house in the middle of the woods with no money, no job, no car, just Ashlyn and I. And I remember we were just like scrounging up change to take back to get a lottery ticket. And we would
Yeah.
buy a lottery ticket, and then we'd write a list of everything we would get if we pull a lottery. Like, that's a kind of, like, we were both, she's a manifesting master. I had her going to school, and well, she did it on her own, and she's saying that we're going to get this house of our own, and she'd go to school and have everybody at the lunch table talk about how they're going to go to her house and like swim in her pond and like go to the pool. She had this whole table of 8th graders manifesting for us
Wow.
without them even knowing it. Yeah, it was just like we were just pulling in that power to manifest, manifest, manifest. It's funny because when I moved into this house, so I lived in South Carolina for a while. I'm originally from Michigan. I moved back to Michigan, ended up back in South Carolina when I really had a ton of dark night of the soul. I say dark years of the soul. And then
Right.
Now I'm in New York. And when I moved into this house is just amazing. I know Jake's talked about the energy here. And when I pulled out the vision board that we made at that house in the woods, I looked at that vision board and we had everything on it. We had manifested all of those things over the last 2 years. So it was really cool to see
That's
where we were at
fascinating.
that time and then look at us now, you know?
That's fascinating. Do you talk to her? I mean, does she, because I know a lot of the people I talk to that have teenagers in particular, in their, responsibility in their household, that are actually navigating the ascension with,
Yeah.
they don't always talk about this stuff. It's like they don't talk about a lot of it. Do you talk ascension with her? Do you talk about
Yeah. She's
galactic with
like,
her and all that stuff?
yeah, she gets me. I swear she was put in my life for this purpose to get me through this ascension, because when she was born, like I said, that's how I knew I had this name picked out. Her name was going to be Nova. Her dad wanted to name her Nova. And I had this dream. This nurse just came to me and handed me the baby in a pink wrapping. And she said, "Here's Ashlyn Rose." And I woke
Mm,
up that morning and I was like, I got chills from spirit just now. I woke up that morning and I was like, her name's Ashlyn Rose. She named herself. And then I read about rainbow children because she's a rainbow child. They come in, choose their parents, and name themselves.
right.
And I talk to her about everything. She says a lot of times, if people heard the things that you say inside of our house, and because I'll talk to her, there's no veil in front of Ashlyn. I'll talk about spiritual things. I'll bounce things off of her. She feels spiritual, ascension symptoms. She goes to her friends' houses. She likes to see the reaction on their parents' faces when they say, "What does your mom do?" And Ashlyn will say, "My mom talks to dead people." Because she just likes to see how they react. And she's had friends' parents that don't even want her around for that reason. They're all
Yeah.
scared now.
Yeah. Man, that's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, does she have any memories, like future memories, past memories, galactic? Does she
She
have any?
has had weird things happen, like no galactic beings come to her. She feels things though. I mean, but even before I knew what a spiritual awakening was, I knew I was a medium. So before I even knew all the rest of this stuff, I just knew I had gifts. I could talk to past souls and people would come to me. And Ashlyn, her being really young, like even 5, we would go into a house and she would say, "You feel that, mommy?" And I would say, "What do you feel?" And she'll say, "Oh, my stomach kind of hurts. I feel kind of dizzy." And that's how we always feel when spirit comes in.
Mm,
So she knew, I mean, she's gifted. She's a medium as well. And she knows she has those gifts. And we live in this house and she's seen, spiritual beings or whatever sitting on the couch or on the chair. And she'll say, "There was someone sitting in that chair last night." So she's like, "I'm going to put this blanket over here. So if he comes back, then I'll see him on this blanket because it's a lighter color." Like she talks about spiritual concepts. Like it's just life for us.
well, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
so what does a 15-year-old have in mind? I've got 6 kids, and the youngest are 17 and 18, about to go up a year. But what goes through their minds? I mean, what are they planning? What's she planning? How does she look at the future? Or is she just like in the moment?
Sometimes, like, she knows she can create her own future. She knows all about manifesting, and like I said, she's a master manifester. She's really powerful. If I want anything, I join Ashlyn in. So if I want anything, I say, "Okay, Ashlyn, I want this to happen. Let's make it happen. We'll manifest it." And every time she helps me, it freaking comes true. That's how I ended up in New York, because I couldn't find a job for a couple of years. So I was like, "I need a job. Let's manifest it." So this isn't the place we really wanted to go, but spirit doesn't always put you where you want to go. It goes where you need to go, right? So
Wow.
the universe landed me here, but I've been doing some grid work here that I didn't know about in my sleep. They've been showing me.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was it like with Jake? Did you guys have any dimensional, interdimensional
No,
experiences, or did you have any, like, you wake up and start talking about something, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, I was there," or anything like that?
we had some things where we would be getting the same messages sometimes. Like I would feel something, he would feel something. Mostly, I felt like Jake's was all like, I feel like this house was like a detox house. You know what I mean? Like kind of like a
Yeah.
safe house, a place where he could come, regroup, clear his mind, and then go on his way. That's how I felt, because it was really like Jake was doing a lot of internal work, So, but then when we come out, we get the kind of the same messages. Like he would feel something, then we'd see, you post something or someone else post something, and then I would come in and be like, "Did you see this message? Like we were just talking about this."
Yeah. I can relate to that. I can relate to Jake. I met Jake, and we spent 4 hours hanging out with some other
Hmm.
people. And and he's very open like me, to
Yeah.
almost to a point where you want to stick something in his mouth or mind. But one thing that he reminded me of was, there was not so much now, but in the early years and even up to maybe a couple of years ago, people would like, have comments and make, you can't be spiritual if you do this and if you do that. And I think, for me, it's a good reminder, that spiritual doesn't have a, particular set of characteristics. It's actually
Right.
the oneness is the oneness, and it just looks different on the surface, and if there's something that makes you feel uncomfortable, or something that you feel you're separate from, that you see in a mirror of you, then it ain't about them. It's about
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's true. And, we had a lot of just views and differences of perspectives from the male and female side, having two different backgrounds, and me being female, him being male, being in the house. And it was interesting because this is like the first male relationship we had where someone was in my house, and it wasn't like a romantic relationship, it's
Yeah,
like strictly a friendship. And that was really cool to me because that showed how much healing I have done, in my past, because before it was all about, meeting a guy and like, oh, this spiritual partner, if you met someone like
yeah,
that in their house, like, oh, finally a spiritual partner, it would all be all about sex and whatever. But I decided last year I would be celibate. I feel like that just him being in the house and us having those exchanges and those conversations, it's like really showed me how much I've grown in my own, my own
yeah.
power.
Yeah, the celibacy we'll go back to in a second. That's a really powerful subject, and I think it's going to be more and more in our face.
Hmm.
But you're in Long Island, and in late 2017, Morgan had come in 2017, but she'd been gone about 6 months, and be another 3 months before I too. We were apart 9 months, so it was still a very, you spend 10 weeks with somebody, and you're in the middle of this ascension. And you go back 2, 3 years ago, and it's all hell every day. And here I am, living like Jake, and out of my suitcase, and it was the same thing that happened. This lady lived in Port Jefferson at the end of Long Island.
I love Port Jefferson.
Isn't
That's
it
where we did that
beautiful?
crystal shop.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I was in central New Jersey thinking I was going to start a weekly gig on this radio station, and then they wanted me to pay to be on. And I was like, what? Go fuck yourselves. But I was also in the middle of a blizzard, probably one of the best videos ever made. I went out in the middle of a blizzard and said, you know what? I ain't giving up. Fuck this shit. I'm not giving up. But anyway, this sister reached out. She goes, I know you through Lavelle Zimmerman, and like 200 friends, like really obscure, like so many of these powerful women. She said, you're welcome to come by here and do the same thing, recharge, and there's no. So it was so
That's so
cool. Like,
cool.
yeah, what you're describing is to be able to go into, spend 2, 3 days, not be bothered, not no
Hmm.
agenda, and just have just a mutual present moment friendship, and it was cool, and so I can relate to what you're saying. And I know, and I didn't even know he was there. I saw a couple of messages or comments, but today when I got up about an hour before the show, I saw that video that I guess y'all made this morning,
Yeah.
and then he says in there, I've been here 2 weeks, and you can just see, because I saw him 3 weeks ago. You could see his countenance. I mean, I think when you said the word detox, no pun intended, I think that really spiritual
Yeah.
detox is what he went through there. And to be in an environment with the opposite gender where the sex is taken off the table, it's not even like, what?
Not even a thought. Yeah.
That's like, whoa, so the celibacy.
Hmm.
How has that affected you? What's it done for you? Why'd you do it?
Well, I'm a Scorpio. So all of my relationships have been about sex like my entire life. I equated love to sex. I have always thought, like, from the typical stereotypical male mind about sex, I've always been that way. I've always been the girl who thought like a man. You know what I mean? So sex was a big part. And it was always like in my relationships, it was always like, oh gosh, if the sex isn't good, forget it. Like, I don't even need to be in this relationship. It's not right for me. It was always like I surrounded my whole life around sex.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that I kept finding toxic partners, but the sex was great, but it was toxic. So if you removed the sex part, my relationship was so shit. And
That's
then
right.
I found myself continuously repeating that pattern. And then I had that really rough relationship where I was in this house in the woods. And at that time, I just started really looking at myself like, I got to make some changes, some
Yeah.
serious changes. And I had a relationship last year. It was a short-term relationship. And I realized in that relationship, the other partner, if they're not where you are, not saying I'm higher or lower in spirituality, or they weren't a spiritual person at all, but if they're in a different spot where they're still in that spot, still thinking that sex is everything in a relationship, and you're here, trying to evolve and trying to make it about the entire picture, I want everything in a relationship. I don't want it just to be about the sex. I want the whole, and then when I do have sex, I want it to be the whole, the whole gamut. I want like
Yeah.
chakras dancing, and I
Yeah.
want it to be an event. I'm just
Right.
not wasting my time anymore.
But it's like well, I'm gonna sacred sex.
Yeah.
There's sex and there's sacred sex, but if you do consider them one and the same, it's the last thing in a relationship.
Yeah.
But in the paradoxical teaching of the universe and the way it works, it's also the great, the other extreme of it. It's like you said, the chakras dance in the whole 9 yards. I think this celibacy, as I've gotten more and more into this sacred union, we both were celibate like you when we met. That was a personal decision we both made. Then we meet, and I believe that created space for that to happen. And then we went through an evolution of intimacy, never any really straight 3D. And if it was would be a very quick interlude that would never even get completed, basically. So something was helping us. And so it's almost like the couple itself goes into a mutual unified celibacy.
Yeah.
And then it brings in all that other stuff, and then you're starting over and the journey starts again. So it's a very I think it's something that's going to be talked about more and more and become more accepted. I know when I mention this to men, they just freak the fuck out. They're like, no,
Yeah.
well, I'll try it for a month or two, and but no, it's a total absolute surrender
Yeah.
to all of that, because all of that was distorted.
Yeah, and I think it's like it's an evolution. I think you get to a certain point where you start healing all these past sexual traumas, and then you realize how sacred that energy is that you're holding,
Yeah.
right? Because when you have sex with someone, that exchange of energy, that's energy that creates worlds. That's energy that creates life.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not to be played with. And when you're,
No.
if someone's draining that life force because you're allowing it, or just all that sexual trauma. Once you start healing that stuff, I think we all get to a point eventually where you're like, okay, I'm in this space where I'm not really thinking about sex because I'm not trying to soothe any wounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think before I was using it to trying to put it like a band-aid over some wounds.
Well,
And
and
I was
trying to
going
and
my
try
self-worth,
yeah, and trying to validate and assure yourself and substantiate your relationship. Morgan and
Yes, and when you're younger, like in your 20s, for me, it was like I was trying to make myself worthy,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I use sex for manipulation at times. Like who doesn't, right? At that time when you're unhealed, I had a lot of things I needed to heal around that, and now I can tell you, being 43, I'm more comfortable myself than ever.
Yeah.
I don't need sexual attention. You know what I mean? Like it makes me look at relationships differently, I guess, with
Yeah.
people around me.
Yeah, because I mean, so it's like flipped now. And here we go.
Hmm.
So it's flipped now. So it used to be, let's fuck and then be friends, right?
Right.
Or if
We'll pretend we're friends, but we'll still have this little bit of a
yeah,
hold
let's
over each
now let's
other.
try to figure out how to be real. But in the old paradigm, in the codependent paradigm, the distorted paradigm, we would spend the bulk of our hours. I'm going to say 95%, even if you were like two rabbits, 95% of your time was going to be not in intimacy, and
Yeah.
that was all of the struggle. And then you go into the bedroom at night or whenever, and you try to find this space to make
Right.
everything okay. But now it's the other way around. Now 95% of the time, the intimacy is in each and every moment, and it just doesn't look like the old intimacy. And that 5% is just, it's like being in nursery school. It's
Yeah.
like, starting all over again. And I think it's a little bit hard on the human, and I know it's hard on the males, but and I'm sure the females as well, but in a different way, still just as intense. But it's a little challenging, but I think we're being supported.
Hmm.
I really think that enough people have done enough work, and when somebody makes that kind of commitment to themselves, the universe is going to reciprocate.
Oh, for sure. It's allowed me to just focus on my path, right? So I've made this last over a year. I decided this in like mid 2019. So since probably June, I've been celibate. And I just decided that I wanted to focus on my path and my own growth
Yeah.
and, getting myself in a place and just spending my time with Ashlyn right now while I still have these few years of her in the house and just enjoying life without the pressures or I guess like you get these, when you get into a sexual relationship with someone, it kind of takes you off your path a little bit. It can add some drama into your life. And right now I'm just coasting. I'm just enjoying it by myself.
Yeah. I just have to. Morgan says this all the time. She just popped in. I didn't know she was watching. This is a quote she always says. She says he spent all his time trying to get in her pussy, and she spent her time trying to get into his heart.
Oh my God,
And
that's so true though.
a reset allows for a pure heart connection, which creates a magical, sacred connection at the same time.
I love that. I
And
love Morgan's post about sacred sexuality and stuff. It totally resonates with me.
yeah, I do too.
Yeah, that you do.
Yeah, this is good
But I
timing.
feel like it's interesting because I feel like being in this place, and it's really interesting. I think that you came here to like the same area because Fort Jefferson's only like 30 minutes from me. That's where Jake and I went to that crystal shop. And
Wow,
it's interesting because I was saying, and he was saying when he came here, there's something special about Long Island, about
there
pure
is.
purification here. It's really interesting.
Yeah, there's something special there. Yeah, I had we took my friend and I took a drive one day, and it was like I want to say right around New Year's,
Hmm.
right around Christmas, New Year's, and it was snowing, and it was a lot of snow. I mean, I walked out in the back patio the first night, and it must have been 2 feet, 18 inches, 2 feet of snow. But anyway, we drove up to the Hamptons
Hmm.
and just drove. We didn't stop or anything. But when we drove by Montauk, I started getting all these downloads, on the way in and the way back. But yeah, it is a very powerful I think an old set of portals out there. Lots of
Yeah, and I feel like
opportunity.
that's why I'm here because I know I've been doing the grid work. Because I don't know if I think you saw my post the other day where I woke up at 4:44.
Hmm.
I got up to go to the bathroom. I woke up and something felt off to me, and it just felt like I was here, but I wasn't here. And I went back. I tried to go back to sleep, and I just popped my eyes open and sat up and looked at the phone, and it was 4:44. And then I said, "Okay, what's going on?" Because I knew something was happening. And I just heard this like voice. It was audible, but I have all the psychic senses, so you never know what's gonna pop through. And it was just audible. It was like this woman's voice. It sounded like an overhead speaker, and she was like, "You and Michael are working the Christ consciousness grid in Indonesia at this time."
Wow.
And I was like, okay. I went back to sleep and forgot all about it. And I woke up the next morning. I'm like, oh, well, that's why. That's what's going on. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's because I'm here. I feel like I was brought here for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a powerful area. And there, I've had quite a few, well, not quite a few, I don't want to exaggerate, but 444 moments in the last week or so,
Yeah, that's
different.
interesting.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think these things, the lucid dreaming is
Mm-hmm.
getting ridiculously intricate and retaining a lot of it and understanding the messages. I mean, have you been experiencing in January, especially the last half of the month? I mean, have you been experiencing like an uptick in clarity, in dimensional experiences and expansion? I guess with Jake being there, that's kind of a stupid question because that was a physical manifestation of what was probably happening inside of you. But how's it been going for you?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like when he was here, there's some kind of activations going on. And I don't know if you saw that we had a Akashic Soul record read or soul realignment, and we realized that we were from the same soul family, and we share a guide. So that was interesting. So that like
Wow.
showed me I was here. And the person that did our reads didn't know Jake was here either. He didn't know we were even friends. So that was
Wow.
really interesting to happen. But yeah, I do feel like an uptick. I mean, always have the veils been lifted for me for a long time because I've been a psychic medium, so it's just easier for those messages to flow through. But I have had a lot of things where I'll just be on my way to work and I'll just record myself speaking because it'll be, beings, a lot of higher dimensional beings will just start speaking through me. And I'm just a clear, open channel. Like I do sometimes on my lives, but which I have live tonight too, by the way. I don't know if you guys want to join, but
Wait. What time and what's the name of the? I don't. There's so many. I can't remember. What's the name of your page?
The Soul Alchemist. I can
That's
put a
right.
comment
So
after, but it's at 8 p.m. tonight, Eastern Standard Time. I never know. I've been doing lives for about 4 years. It's just,
yeah.
I get on there and either a past loved one can come through, a higher dimensional being can come through. Sometimes I pull cards. I really never know what's going to happen until I hit the live button. So, but I usually just have a good time on them.
We're
But yeah,
gonna have to do something with that. It's
yeah,
interesting because when I woke up 8 years ago, there was initially a 14-year-old boy who had died tragically came to me. His mother was a psychic medium who I went to school with for 5 years, 7th grade to 12th grade, but I never spoke to her. Her best friend was my best friend, but we never spoke. Anyway, so make a long story short, we connected for a few weeks, and I had, my third eye blasted open, and I was having, well, I guess, psychic medium experiences on my own and together. But then after that, for probably about another year and a half, these psychic mediums would pop in, and I really wasn't out there. I wasn't doing videos. I was doing a lot of poetry, but they would pop in and they'd say, we've got to talk, or I was told to call you. And then all this stuff would start happening back and forth. And I look back at that time and I look back at those experiences and looked how different things are now than they
yeah.
were then. Your psychic medium experiences and interactions, what were they like, 4 or 5 years ago compared to now? Is there a difference?
Yeah. Yeah, I work a lot in the angelic realm. So I've been working with Archangel Michael's, he's one of my spirit guides anyway, but he's always on my right hand side. I can always feel him. And Archangel Metatron's always on my left. And I had some really prophetic dreams about that were coming to me through Archangel Metatron with Bible verses and things and all kinds of crazy stuff. But it kind of evolved. So I was only getting messages from past loved ones for a really long time, like throughout my life. And then I really opened up my mediumship and I just started meditating. And once I started meditating, everything started flowing through. It's like I just opened the fountain. Everything started coming through. And then it kind of evolved. It went to inner child healing out of nowhere. I was just a medium, right? I was just doing psychic medium sessions. And then all of a sudden, all this inner child healing started coming through. And I didn't know where it was coming from, but it felt like it wasn't past loved ones, right? It felt like some other consciousness. And then I realized that was Archangel Metatron. Eventually, he showed himself to me and showed me he's the one that's helped me with inner child healing. And then it went a little bit further. And then Archangel Michael started coming in and he helps me teach things like mediumship and, protection for people, even though they don't need it. It's like some kind of like safeguarding. And then it evolved to then the Galactic Council of Light started coming in. So it's like, it feels like in levels as I'm able to like clear all this human garbage, out of my channel. It's like more and more starts to come through from different beings. And I can always recognize their energy imprints or their energy signatures when they come
Wow.
through.
Well, that's one of the things I've noticed in these 8 years is when I was having these interactions, even though I was kind of a rookie, and I was having these interactions with these psychic mediums through those 2 years, and there was probably a dozen of them. I would always be able to detect the shadow. Like I could always detect. I could tell when it was usually the first couple of interactions would come in. The messages were pure. I was aligned with it. I didn't doubt it. But then I could see a flash of what I perceived as ego, which was really just shadow. And I started to realize that, hey, they're like operators, but they're not utilizing that for themselves.
Yeah.
And now I look back to the last 2-3 years and I see where these same caliber of skills and abilities in people are being utilized on themselves. That sounds like when you went into that inner child stuff and all that, because I've always believed that what we receive is first and foremost meant for ourselves, although some people have a function as that operator or as that intermediary, that go-between, like you.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel like during those sessions, I did a lot of my own inner child healing at the same time. They would come in and teach me tools to use on myself, and then I would share those tools with others in sessions.
Yeah.
So that was really cool as well. But even in the sessions, I was realizing things about myself in those sessions as well.
Yeah.
It allowed me to heal as well. I would have those sessions and give them all this information and give these tools and stuff to cope. And then later I would have all these epiphanies about how my story relates to theirs. So it was really interesting, the connection there. And I kept getting clients. I always say I get clients that are like 2 steps behind me. So not behind me, like I'm higher than them, but more behind me, like that I've experienced those things in the past and now they're just now experiencing them. So it's really weird. Like the same stories, exact same stories and types of characters that are playing in that play at that time, they're experiencing that same thing that I experienced 2 years ago. So it's really interesting how that all lines up.
Yeah. And I could always tell too, there was one, I hate to say class, but there was one class that was a psychic medium kind of operator, real-time information. Like, I've got something I've got to tell you, so-and-so wants me to tell you, or the connection would be made. And then it started happening to me, and a disincarnated soul would come to me and say, you need to call my mother, so I was doing some of it. But then I noticed there was another type, and that type was, they can kind of read the field. And what I noticed about them was that they would tell me like my future or whatever, or my, whatever you call it. But I would always notice that they were like behind me. Like, in other words, it's something I had already come to. It was like,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I could see a difference. So I do see, and I don't get stuck on labels, but I do see there is a more true, I guess, type of medium, where you are actually that middleman or that middle person between the two, which is really interesting to see how this is going to come into play now where we're at. Has it
Yeah.
changed for you? I mean, how has your session work with other people? What does it come to in the last 2 or 3 months? I mean, what do you do?
Oh my gosh. Well, now it's like, I never know. But before I knew what I was going into, before I knew, okay, this is obviously going to be a medium read, right? In the beginning, I knew it was going to be a medium read. And it's funny how I even started that, because I was just giving messages that they came through past loved ones to friends and stuff. And then I was in meditation and they were telling me, no, it's time for you to go. You need to do this, give this to others, bring this to others. So I remember the first medium read I ever did. I just like totally hyped myself up, did a meditation, raised my vibration. I put on earbuds and danced my ass off to raise my vibration. And then I just got on a phone call and gave this lady an hour read. I had never given a paid read before. It was my first one. And I remember getting off the phone and be like, holy fuck, this is real, right? Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And since then, I've learned to just go. I go wherever I'm guided. I don't go into any of my sessions expecting anything. I've learned that because I don't know what's going to come up. Some people come to me for mediumship and their session is not even mediumship. They'll get a message from a past loved one, but it's time for them to awaken. I get a lot of people where they're fighting their awakening and spirit's trying to, knock on their door and they just keep running from it. So I get a lot of messages there. And for some reason, when you give someone a message that they haven't told anybody or parts of their life that they haven't shared, and it's like you built this trust with them, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can trust this now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely.
It's like they're running from their awakening. They're running from all this spiritual life. They're running from the truth, really. And because I'm just this stranger who brings in this message to them of something that they did experience or something they've been feeling in their heart, and I'm able to validate that for them, it makes them feel, I guess, not crazy at all. And then they end up just full-blown awakening. It's the craziest thing. It's like I always say, like, I'm just the key holder, right? Like, whatever you do with these messages is your choice. But in my history of sessions, I've done hundreds and hundreds of sessions for people all over the place. It's like that's the one thing they all have in common is they're just on the verge of their awakening. They're just about to burst through, and then I come busting through like the Kool-Aid man, give them some shit they didn't expect me to have, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, it's validated.
Wow.
It's really interesting.
So
that's what I learned lately.
And you approach your videos like you're going to do tonight at 8:00 Eastern on Soul Alchemist, your page. You approach those the same way as you do your sessions. You don't know what you're going to do.
Nope, I don't have a message played out. I don't know what's going to do. I've been doing these for about 3-4 years now. I think 3 years for the lives, maybe almost 4. But since the beginning, they just kept telling me. I built a really close relationship with my guidance team and my spirit team, I call them. And when they tell me to go, I just get on and I just hit record and I see what happens. Like, I never know what the messages are going to say. I never know who needs what. People will just start popping on, and I'll try to give as many people in the comments I can, either a card or a message or whatever spirits tell me to give them. I never know. It's usually a combined show of things.
Spontaneous, intuitive, creative, imaginative, depending on what you're doing or saying, courageous.
Exactly.
It's the same philosophy I have. One. So what are you getting right now?
What am I getting? What do you mean?
What's in your field right now? I'm just going to
In my
compare.
field right now?
I'm going to compare notes with you. What do you want? Let's just go with it. Let's go with it. So, uh, like no one's here, just me.
Okay.
And what comes to you?
The first thing that comes to me for you mean? I feel
Well,
like you have
could be
you have
me,
a
could be me, could be you.
well, that's the first thing. That's the first thing I got is because they are all talking about this. They're talking about your message to others and how it's like on the road to expansion, right? It's on which we know obviously you do so many shows a day, but they're also like the first thing comes for me is usually I get whatever is like a block for someone. So and I hate even saying the word block because it's kind of negative. If you like to hear negative, but whatever. But it's like you have this thing about it's like a of fear of success. That's the first thing they show for you is like fear of success. It's like over the next 3 years for you for expansion for this channel, it's going to be huge. But it's like I don't know if it's a fear of like organization or keeping up. I don't know what it is, but that's the only thing that came through just now. It just came busting through. Like they just show me you as under a glass ceiling.
We're gonna have to break that thing.
Yeah. Do you feel that?
Boy.
Do you feel like a fear of like expansion, a fast expansion, or not?
Well, it's not. If it is, it's not conscious. It might be a subtle,
Yeah.
A subtle understanding. But no, it's if I look at it from a nonlinear aspect, there's some truth to that. I think I look at it. I think what we're all faced with, for me, is what's our real fear? Is there fear, death, or is our fear of our own power? And I think that's what I would probably classify mine as. It's not a big bad wolf hanging over me, but I feel like I think we're all kind of going to come to that, where we've got to accept our, as much as we've accepted the parts of us that are leaving us, what does that leave us? The parts of us that stay, which are supernatural, incredible, divine, eternal, all-powerful, limitless human hybrid souls. So
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a lot of us do have a fear of power and also a fear of abuse of power, I guess. Because as you go through the spiritual journey, you start to become humble, right? And you like try to do the right things and you don't want to make anybody, try to insult people or you want to go on your path without hurting others. And it's like, I feel like that builds a fear up too of abuse of power because we want to stay humble in this growth, right?
Yes, true. And I would say too, for me, having had career success in my past, before I woke up, there was, that you see a lot of in the matrix in the corporate world, you see a lot of abuse of power. You in a state that you were unaware of, you could have done the same thing that you saw in others that you swore you'd never do, and so I think you're right about that. I think the humility, we learned a lot of humility. I think all of us, I was homeless too, like you and your daughter. I think a lot of that humility came in very brutal ways. I think we can actually achieve a higher level of humility in a different way. Now I think many people are proving that. You've seen a lot of people transform that have come from a few years of mediumship or certain skills and abilities or certain connections, cosmic connections that they over identified with, and you're starting to see them come off of that and transform themselves, and that's cool because it doesn't look painful.
Yeah, I'm in corporate America now. I'm back in. That's why I moved to Long Island for a job that just fell in my lap. It was an amazing job. It's everything I ever wanted. And I was like, and I had been out of work for over 2 years. I was like, holy shit, how did I get this job? Obviously divine intervention, but because I'm supposed to be here, it allowed me to come here and have this great place. But in corporate, I see it in corporate America all the time. Like I'll be sitting, is sitting with a table of 12 adults and I can see everyone's inner child. They're all arguing with each other, and I'm sitting there trying to stay true and stay in integrity because it's like I live it, breathe it, speak it. So it's not like I'm just doing it at home. I have to do it at work too. So I'm finding that's why I'm in that corporate environment right now is it's like more because universe is going to continue to give us these lessons, right? It's like and my big lesson has been for balance, like balancing no matter what my environment is in. And it's like, it's kind of like corporate America is my step up. So now I'm there trying to stay in integrity, trying to stay true to myself, trying to do the right thing, while I have certain higher management who isn't always, able to do the right thing out of their power or responsibility. So it's been a really interesting, I always call them human experiments. So it's been really interesting to go back into corporate America after a full-blown awakening and try to take everything you've learned and spread all this light into the office building,
Yeah. Have you thought about taking the plunge into just totally disengaging? I know that's got to be much more challenging with the 15-year-old in your house.
That's why actually I went back to work, because I was out of work for 2.5 years. Like I said, I was only doing spiritual work, and I grew so much at that time. So I'm so thankful for it. But it also caused a lot of stress because I do have a kid to feed. So it would cause so much stress on me that it was kind of messing me up, where my mind was always spinning and I couldn't keep focused. I couldn't stay into a calm frame of mind and allow that balance. I just couldn't get my footing because I was so worried, like, how am I going to feed her? How am I going to clothe her? Trying to give her a normal life. So when I felt like it was right again, I was like, okay, I'm going to start applying again. So I put out jobs, and then when this job fell in my lap, I was like, this is obviously meant for me. I'm supposed to go to Long Island, because there's no way I would get this job in any other condition. And I did. And since I came here, I'm now, because she's 15 now, so she'll be in the house for at least 3 years, but I am on a 3-year plan to get back to freedom. So I'm going to use this to the best of its ability, use this corporate environment, continue to spread my light, and continue to use it as a growth tool. And then I'm going to go back out there and just completely live my spiritual work again.
Well, you manifested the balance you were seeking.
I did. I did, because I'm able to have this relaxing. I can go to work. There are some weeks where if I'm having a rough, like, going inward week, I don't have to do sessions if I don't want to. I can go live my human experience, work that corporate job, come home, know that I'm going to be able to provide for her. It gives me that sense of, I guess I get more relaxed in that space because I'm not tense and worried,
Yeah.
So now I'm on a 3-year plan. When she graduates from here, she doesn't want to stay in New York. She wants to go back to Michigan, and I'll be on a 3-year plan back to freedom. So I look forward to that as well. So now I'm just taking all that growth I can until that time comes.
I think the universe just laughs at us when we use the word plan. Especially now.
I keep saying that. I probably shouldn't have said 3-year plan, because every time I plan something, it never works out that way. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm going with the flow, though. If my job ended tomorrow, as much as I love that I have the stability, if it ended tomorrow, I've done it before. I'll make it again. I'm not really worried about it. It's just nice to have a comfort.
Do you, through your work, through your session work, do you, and even through your connection to the universe and all its faces, do you get like collective intel, like say over the last few weeks, or do you have any type of idea what's happening, what we're going through, where we're headed, anything like that?
I usually because I deal with chronic pain. So a lot of times mine lately has been, I'm realizing that my body is healing itself through all these shifts. And I feel like it's a lot of just shedding and releasing. Like, as I release old paradigms, old views, it's like, once I think I've gotten to the bottom, there's like 5 more floors below, right? So I'm continuously digging. And as I do, mine lately has been a lot about healing on a collective level, I guess, like healing on a different level, or emotional healing, but not like an shadow work emotional healing, more like just stuff that's deep within, that's just being lifted energetically by nature, just like by the nature of these shifts. It's just being released from all of us,
Yeah, I certainly feel like it's, especially the last 10 days or 2 weeks, that I know there's been all along transformation happening in the body physically, but over the last couple of weeks, it's been very, very obvious to me. Some things that I thought were clear, stuff coming back, pain, the body speaking to me, and it's not like, oh, something's wrong. It's just like, hey, we're still working down here. And I'm like, okay, well, hurry up, because it hurts.
Yeah, I deal with pain all over, head to toe. I deal with chronic pain, and I have for about 10 years. I finally realized they were calling it fibromyalgia. I finally realized it was Ascension symptoms years ago. but it still hurts.
Yeah.
So it cleared out for a while and I felt great. I find this year is like, it's like coming back tenfold. And I feel like it's like the last parts, you know, like digging like the deepest parts of your soul to kind of lift that garbage. That's what I feel like it is.
Yeah,
Deep,
definitely.
like deep rooted pain.
Yeah, definitely the root for me, definitely the root and the sacral. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the lower, the solar, the root and the sacral. Solar seems to be pretty good shape. The sacral's getting real interesting, and the root is almost mind blowing, really.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. My root, I always think of it as a brick. I swear that thing. It's like constantly, I swear I'm always clearing the root, I feel like.
Yeah. But there seems to be a lot of clearing lately. You know, people talking about the equilibrium reach between the lower chakras and the higher chakras,
Mm-hmm.
the earth being anchored through the lower chakras, you know, as the chakra channel casting into the earth and anchoring just as it has to the crown into the cosmos. I mean, so I think there's a lot of good signs, and I think things are moving pretty fast. Amanda Lawrence was talking about 6 months from now yesterday, and Franco was talking about it the day before that. I saw a post that Greg Prescott put up a YouTube video with Allison Coe this morning, talking about how at the end of this year, how much different, way beyond our comprehension, how much different it will be. Do you feel that? Do you feel like the second half of the year is going to be kind of like fantastical?
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Like when I was saying the grid work with Archangel Michael, I feel like that grid work, because I felt like it was more of kind of like another nudge for a mass awakening, you know, because they're coming in waves, another mass wave of awakening, and then readjusting the grid to a different vibration. It's like we're sending out all these signals to wake up all these people or like push them through their awakening, and then readjusting the vibrational frequency of the grid and like continuously raising, you know, it's kind of like a tolerance thing, I guess. Like
Yeah.
it's going in layers and waves, and then allowing the grid, like allowing the people to catch up so the grid can raise again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, you know, and of course, you know, walking this path with Morgan, which for a little over a year now, other than an exception of 57 days, we've been side by side physically. And then looking at my own situation, our situation, her situation, and observing other people, I realize more and more as time goes on, we've always been doing it for the individual and the
Mm-hmm.
collective. You know, as the
Right.
individual goes, so goes the collective. But what I'm starting to see is more evidence that the things that we're doing, the places that we're put, like you're in Long Island, and we're in Sarasota at the moment, and Jake's on his way to Michigan. You know, I mean, it's more obvious to me that we're being put in certain places. We are doing grid work, whether we're conscious of it or not, whether it's in dream
Mm-hmm.
state or in the awake state. So we are definitely kind of turning it up in
Yeah.
terms of the collective. And as we feel these energies come in, it's not like we have the linear time that we had a year ago or 6 months ago or 3 months ago to process it and spit it back out. It's like happening really fast, but I think we're the ones actually doing that.
Yeah, it's kind of like how much can you tolerate? Then we're gonna bump it up a little bit. How much can you tolerate? Let's bump it up a little bit. That's how I feel. It's been going in these cycles of just like just turn up the knob a little bit and see how much everyone can tolerate, and then turn it up a little more. You know, kind of like inching up. That's how I feel. And then I read Jason Estes stuff, and it's really interesting the stuff he posts because it always aligns with how I'm feeling.
Right.
You know, and I half the time I don't understand any influx stuff. Like I don't really know what it means, but it's like I can feel it at a soul level, if that makes sense. A lot of
Yeah, it
times.
does. I think a lot of that, a lot of what people put out there is like that. I don't think it's the words, you know, or if it's a video,
Yeah.
what's spoken. I think it's it's the non-physical. It's a
Mm-hmm.
combination of everything. You know, the lighting. You know, you see all these anomalies happening. They're not coincidences. It's no more coincidence than everybody, you know, running into 22:22 and 4:44 in the morning and 11:11. You know, or Jake pulling up at at your place and you being told what to do, and he just met with us, and it's all kind of connected and falling in line. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I
Yeah, it's
can
really interesting. And then I think like people passing, you know, there's all these people that are passing lately, and I see that, and sometimes like I got to catch myself, make sure I'm not too insensitive out loud, you know, because for me, I mean, I've been dealing with people, so I don't feel as sensitive to people passing, but I'm always like, oh, that soul chose not to go forward, you know,
yeah,
that soul chose how to bow out. I'm always like, I don't think
a,
it on a
that's a
death
good
level.
point.
I always sometimes gotta come back down to human terms and be like,
Yeah, that's a
people are
very good.
experiencing
That's a
this.
very good point. That's a very good point. And I think this whole thing with Kobe Bryant really kind of brought that to the surface
Mm-hmm.
because it was interesting because I, I'm a basketball fan and I always enjoyed his work and respected him. But it didn't hit me like that, you know. But I
Mm-hmm.
went onto YouTube because I watch videos every now and then, you know, to pass time and process stuff. And I noticed all these videos about Kobe, but they weren't about Kobe.
No.
They were about the people. Oh, I knew Kobe when, and I'm gonna, you know, Kobe this. It wasn't about Kobe. It was about them. And I thought, whoa, you know,
Yeah.
whoa. And then,
Humans do tend to make mourning about themselves, I find a lot of times, but I always
yeah,
feel so insensitive about it. Like, I don't want to, I'm always really care about what I say around death because being so close and like talking to people who pass all the time, I don't feel that sadness when someone passes. I feel like, oh, cool, they transitioned, you know, like, oh, they bowed out. That's cool.
yeah, we had a dear. Oh, where'd you go?
All right. I apparently
Okay.
got a phone call. Oh, there it
Well,
is.
we had a dear, a really, um, you know, important soul in the evolution of Soulogy transitioned earlier this month, and I hadn't actually spoken to her in a couple of years because she went her way and I went mine. She ran the group for about 2 or 3 years, and she did an incredible job and injected incredible energy. And I went and stayed with her a couple of times up in Connecticut, and so we were pretty close. And that was an important part of Soulogy. I mean, this was like from like 7,000 people in the group to like 20,000. She was there in that period. But anyway, she passed, and I talked to a couple of her sisters. They reached out to me, and you know, I had compassion. You know, definitely had compassion. But it was like make a statement of compassion, move on to the
Yeah.
family. And I talked to her. I connected with her 2 or 3 times. And then a very dear friend of ours who'd been a part of Soulogy as well, she might be on the show at this moment, but she hit me up and said, "Would you like to do like a show celebrating, you know, Donna's transition or you know, in life and such?" And I thought, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't want to like feed the monster. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't see her as not being here. And I might change my mind, and I don't know, but
Right.
I'm gonna have to respect, like even with the Kobe thing, you know, I just was like, he's not even gone, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like I don't want to feed the monster, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's hard. Like, it's hard to resolve the two. Like,
Yeah,
we're used to all this stuff about transition, like dealing with all these higher dimensional beings and people passing, but they're still
yeah,
here. And then also, I try to have to remember that I'm dealing with other people who aren't on a conscious level aware, you know, or they still see it as this tragedy. Where I just see it as, okay, they chose not to continue on their journey, or their soul left for some reason, whatever reason they transitioned. I feel like it's a happy one. I don't ever feel like it's a, you know, they're the ones that are, we're the ones that are sad. They're the ones that are living life, you know, they don't have to deal
yeah.
with all the
Right,
shit. They don't have all the shit we have to deal with.
right. Alinka Sandhu, dear sister, and I know you wrote me, and I know you made a comment on this, and I just didn't get to it. I'm sorry. I don't know if you met her in 2004. If you did, it would have been in the Connecticut area. It would have been in the Hartford, Connecticut area. I just wanted to tell you that while I had the chance. Um, yeah, you were just, what were you just saying? I was gonna
Oh,
follow up.
I'll say they're the ones that get to transition. They don't have to deal with the shit that we have to deal
Yeah,
with.
yeah, but you know, it's so funny. Last night I had this lucid dream. I just put a post up about it, and the short of it was that I was in the lucid dream, and it was like me and my higher self were watching the movie of Todd, right? And and uh, and so there was this whole thing about being misjudged, unfairness, um, you know, being perceived or assumptions made about you or accused of something that you didn't do. And that really wasn't the issue. The issue was the pain and the suffering and that it brought, the uncomfortableness that it brought to my being. And so I was told, don't rebut, don't defend yourself, just walk in silence, the strength of your silence. And then my higher self says, no, I said, you know what? No, the universe said, uh, do you do you want to suffer some more? And I said, hell no, I'm done. You know, And then I said, in fact, and I'm in the dream, knowing it's a lucid dream, knowing what's happening, which is really cool because I think that's happening to a lot of people now. And I was like, how do I get out of here? And so I started thinking about the different ways to suicide, and of course we've all been there,
Right.
And so then it said, well, why do you want to leave this realm if you know you're in a realm and you know you're eternal? Why is it? And I said, well, the pain and the suffering. And then I said, well, can I stay without the suffering? And it said, yeah, just let go of all that, let go.
That's so cool. That's so profound, though.
But to me, it's on the same wavelength. So we could actually get to the point where we're like they are, those that have transitioned on the outside looking in, seeing how ridiculously stressed out we're getting. We could actually maintain that same, or get to that point, sustain that same perspective and function, and not have to transition.
Yeah, I always try to think of it as a play, and everyone's playing a role in this play, and it's a game. Whatever happens, who gives a fuck? We're still here. We're still gonna play it out, right? So unless you choose to take a detour or an exit, which I have no plans to, but I think we have all had those suicidal thoughts and stuff, like going through this awakening confusion.
You haven't gone very deep if you haven't thought about checking out.
Yeah, I remember I had a lucid dream as well before, where it was like I was wanting to leave, and they're like, well, go ahead. And I remember this gun being in my stomach, and it was like, go ahead. It was weird because when I woke up, I felt like if I would have shot that gun, I would have died in my sleep. Is that weird? Like, that's what I thought. Like, at that point, I had a choice. They're gonna like, well, are you gonna stay or you're gonna go? Is it really that bad where you want to check out? Then check out now in your sleep, or just continue on. And when I woke up, I was like, holy shit! It kind of gave me a sense of gratitude. Like, I don't want to leave. I'm having too much fun right now.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to.
Even like people are like, oh, I want to go back home to my home planet. I don't want to go home to my home planet. We're here for a purpose. Might as well just live it up and enjoy it while we're here. Yeah. I love everything about the human experience, though. I love like all the craziness, all the lessons I'm learning. Like, I do get into it. I'm a total self-development junkie. I love to like dig in lessons and see what I've learned on things and learn through experiences. So I think I just love everything about the human experience.
Right on. Let me I'm gonna do something here. Let me just let's see, how do I do this? 1 second. Okay, I want to pull up your page and show everybody. So this is the Soul Alchemist, right? And you do sessions. This is cool, and you're going to be, and this is where you broadcast from.
Yeah, that's my little event right there where it says just say fuck it, a little magic on it.
Going live on Saturday, 8 p.m. EST. Just say fuck it and sprinkle a little magic on it. Yeah, that sounds like a Soulogy vibe to me. So this is everybody. Let's get over and to the Soul Alchemist page. This is
thank you.
Lorrie's page, and let's give her some likes. I'm going to share this into the Soulogy network. Let's support each other.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I love doing them. I just have a good time. I think it's great for me to exercise just my gifts and like my connection. And I love giving people messages because everyone gets something out of it. We sit there and laugh, and usually I'm laughing at my own expense. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, that's good to do.
I'm pretty laid back. I don't give a fuck about most things. So I just have fun.
I can tell. Well, maybe we'll get up that way. We'll meet in person and do a little collaboration.
Yes, I would love that so much.
Until then, you take care of you and your daughter, and best to you always.
Yeah, thank you for coming. So much love to you. Thanks. You too. Thanks, everyone.
All right. See you later, Lorrie. Bye-bye. Yeah.